Life is 10% what happens uh, to you and 90% what happens within you. Every time when you face calamities, odds in life, or whatever other challenges you face, you have the right to react or to respond. A lot of us, given the lack of skills and our disposition, we react and we end up losing opportunity. Welcome to Marketplace Media, an online platform that engages, equips, and encourages believers to say inawezekana. If this is your first time being here, we encourage you to hit the subscriber button so that every time when we upload a new video, YouTube will be able to notify you. What are some of the lessons have you learned when you've gone through challenges of life? Please feel free to share with us on either YouTube or our Facebook profile, and we shall read your comments at the tail end of this broadcast. Now, last week in our leadership class, we began discussing leadership lessons that we picked from Joseph. And you can go there to learn more, but for the sake of summary and continuity, we said there are 7 leadership lessons, and we did part A. And the first lessons that we discussed is grow up from naivety to maturity. And we saw how Joseph began his life as a immature person, and now at the tail end he became so mature. His perspective really changed from selfishness to to selflessness. And we also said the second lesson, we talked about go up the road of integrity, and we saw how both Joseph in the New Testament and Joseph in the Old Testament actually walked the path of integrity in his life. Number 3, we talked about giving up following self. Joseph, at the beginning of the story, was so selfish. He was following his whims. But we see at the tail end of his story, he was following God's direction. And even more when we look at Joseph, the husband of Mary, we see when God or the angel gave him crazy, odd instructions that actually could not have made sense to him, he actually followed God and he did what the angel asked him to do. Now, lesson number 4, make peace with adversity. Joseph was actually faced a lot of challenges in his life. And we can provide a short list here. Number 1, he was hated, he was envied, he was spoken ill against, he was stripped, he was thrown into a pit, he was isolated from his family, he was lied against. And in Genesis 39 verse 8 we read that now they hated Joseph more than ever because of what he had said about his dreams. Joseph was falsely accused by persons who were supposed to take care of him. He had served them very faithfully. And we see, especially Potiphar, even after him experiencing the Midas touch, the increase, the breakthrough, when he was falsely accused, we see Potiphar hurriedly, even without thinking, throwing him into a prison. He was forgotten. He was taken for granted. He was despised. Nobody thought of him serious. You see, when he helped the cupbearer, we see the officer actually forgot about him. He never remembered the good thing that he had done for him. Number 4, so we are saying Joseph was hated, he was falsely accused, he was forgotten, in prison, and he was stripped of his coat of many colors and thrown into a pit. In Genesis 37 verse 24 to 25, these brothers, they acted in a heartless manner, in a merciless manner. They were simply mannerless. Because we ask the question, how can you sit and eat food while the person who had brought that food is actually anguishing in a pit, in a cold pit somewhere, without really minding whether a scorpion or a snake had bitten him? These brothers were merciless. They had actually stripped him when we want to believe, they must have insulted him and spoken ill of him. And as we say, the story was twisted and lied about for many, many years. Jacob, his father, knew that Joseph was dead. And because his brothers had conspired to speak ill about him, in Genesis 37, verse 31 to 35, we read that Joseph's brothers killed a goat and dipped Joseph's fancy coat in its blood. And after this, they took the coat to their father and said, "We found this. Look at it carefully and see if it belongs to your son." Jacob knew it was Joseph's coat and said, "It is my son's coat. Joseph has been torn to pieces and eaten by some wild animals." And we see that Jacob, in the verse 34, Jacob mourned for Joseph a long time, and to show his sorrow, he tore his clothes and wore sackcloth. All of Jacob's children came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, "I will go to my grave mourning for my son." So Jacob kept on grieving. Now, when we look at Joseph, despite facing all these kind of challenges, we see he had mastered what Warren Buffett, a wealthy business investor, said many years ago after Joseph. He said, "When you find yourself in a ditch, stop digging." When you find yourself in a ditch, stop digging. Joseph, when he found himself in a ditch, instead of digging, he was at peace. He must have sung the song, "It is well with my soul." And we see his perspective well shaped in Genesis 50, verse 20, where he said, "You tried to harm me." Because his brothers actually tried to harm him. They wanted to stop his dreams. They were full of envy against him. So we read, "You tried to harm me, but God made it turn out for the best, so that he could save all those people, as he is now doing. Don't be afraid. I'll take care of you and your children." After Joseph said these words, his brothers felt much better. A lot of times we face troubles. These troubles are caused by our friends. These troubles are caused by colleagues. Sometimes they talk ill about us. Sometimes they misunderstand us. Sometimes they falsely accuse us. Sometimes they put us in trouble. And sometimes when we find ourselves in the troubles that our friends have actually put ourselves into, our biggest our quickest way is to cry foul and to complain and to plan revenge. Not so for Joseph. He was at peace. He said, "Yes, you must have done this with ill will. I know you did this because out of envy. But God's plan actually overrides your envy. God's plan overrides your enmity and hostility. And when you people wanted me to suffer, God used that plan. He actually hijacked your evil plan and he used this plan so that I will be positioned in a place and space that I can be able to help you." Become having peace with adversity simply shortcuts our desire for revenge. And as leaders, every time when we are at peace with adversities, the challenges that we go in life, we are able to make advantage, or we are able to maximize the opportunities that we find ourselves in. Instead of seeing them as obstacles, instead of being bitter and angry, when we make peace with adversities that we go through, we are able to outgrow those challenges. We are able to live beyond that bitterness. We are able to turn lemons into lemonade. We become mature. We make good use of those opportunities. Remember, when the enemies throw unto you stones, use them to build something constructive. The problem with most of us, when those people that don't like us throw stones, we use them instead of building something valuable or something constructive or something that is profitable, we cry foul, we become bitter, we resign into depression, and end up resigning ourselves into something that is useless. A lot of people out there who've been able to make something who we celebrate today went through odds. They were criticized, they were opposed, stones were thrown unto them. But instead of them running away and becoming bitter, literally, as the old saying says or advises, they used those stones to build something constructive and profitable. I know you might be there, very angry, very bitter, because of what was done to you. Somebody victimized you, and you were transferred from where you should be. Maybe somebody sat on the opportunity of promotion. Somebody spoke ill about you, and so you were denied that tender. Or maybe somebody worked against the neighborhood, and you were ejected from your business was closed down. These are things that people does to us. I encourage you to be at peace with adversity. Please tell God, even at this point, even in this space and place, I can make it. Can I tell you that it doesn't matter where you are? The big question is God with you? Please pick up your hymn and sing the song, "It is well with my soul." Because even where you are, God will be able to promote you, and you're not disadvantaged. Even where you are, God will give you impact. God will cause you to make great things. There will be results. There will be profit. There will be growth. There will be progression. There will be profit. God will give you wisdom that comes from above. He will give you knowledge. He will give you wisdom. He will give you intelligence, the way he did to Bezalel, and you're going to make it. So if there's any lesson that we pick from Joseph, is be at peace with adversity. A lot of leaders, once they assume power, they have begun a trajectory of revenge, of speaking ill about their predecessor, where without actually recognizing that God has actually given them the opportunity that was denied by whoever it is was denying them. We speak with leaders this night and urge them that instead of spending your time criticizing, jeering, laughing at your enemy, and those actually who opposed your assertion and assuming office, please ask the Lord, what is it that you would want me to do in this time and season? Remember, if you don't use that time and opportunity, and you use it cajoling, jeering, revenging, and laughing against those who opposed your coming, God will actually remove you from that position that he has given you. God would want you to put things straight. God would want you to serve the purpose in which he has given you, because you are at peace with adversity. The other thing, when we are not at peace with the adversity, is that we build walls around us such that we will not be ejected out of power. If you look at most of African leaders, because they are not at peace with themselves, they are not at peace with the challenges that they are going through, they go out there and kill opposition leaders, they speak ill about them, they don't entertain them, and they end up becoming presidents for life. Why? Because they are not at peace with adversity. When it is well with your soul, you do not encourage or create an environment of personal vendetta. Lesson number 5 that we pick from Joseph, and that characterizes Joseph generational leaders. Give up pride and arrogance. Give up pride and arrogance. This is Marketplace Media, an online platform that engages, equips, and encourages believers to say, Inawezekana. We encourage you to hit the subscriber button of our YouTube channel so that we can grow this community. Lesson number 5. Give up pride and arrogance. Finally, Joseph went before Pharaoh, and before long he was declared or promoted to the position of a prime minister. Before then, the king was elated and said to him, I had a dream, yet no one can explain it to me. And I'm told that you are the master, you are an expert. There is no dream that you cannot be able to interpret. This was a perfect opportunity that Pharaoh was giving to Joseph to brag and to say, yes, I am the one. Unfortunately, Joseph, because he knew that Joseph generational leaders are not proud or arrogant, he said it, Your Majesty, I can't do it myself. But God will give the king or Pharaoh a favorable interpretation. There are moments in our lives when we are given moment to be arrogant, to blow our own trumpet, to tell people how wonderful and how great we are. Joseph teaches us something. He was wiser and humbler than he was some 20 or so years ago, 17 years to be precise. Instead of saying, yes, I can do it, yes, I am the master, yes, I am the guru here, yes, I can do it. Instead of showing off, he decided to become humble and simple. He said, God will do it. He gave God the credit. Sometimes when we are in the presence of those mighty and influential people, do we give credit to God, or do we try to show how powerful, how knowledgeable, how good, how great we are? When you make yourself great, when you try to show off in the presence of a great person, you end up losing the opportunity that he has given you. Joseph never made himself appear like himself. He was simply humble. What is humility? Humility can be defined in 4 ways. Humility is admitting mistakes. It's the ability to say, I am sorry. Arrogant leaders will never admit their mistakes. Number 2, humility is willingness to be corrected. You can admit your mistakes, but then you not be willing to be corrected. Humble people, humble leaders are accountable to someone, and they willingly accept to be corrected, to be rebuked. Number 3, humility is the willingness to serve others. Remember, Mark 10 verse 45 tells us the purpose and the behavior of Jesus Christ. He said, the Son of Man came to serve, not to be served. Sometimes we felt that we are too big to do certain things. For example, a CEO would feel demotivated to go, or would feel so belittled if he goes and does the janitor's work, sweeping the floors, or wiping his own table, or even doing his own toilet. we would hardly do it, you know, even when the table is wet, would not want to wipe it, because we feel by doing this small manual low class job that our importance and our value will be lowered. Allow us to ask you, would the bishop lose his anointing if he wipes the pews? The answer is no. He would still be the bishop. So humility is the willingness to serve others. Allow us to say that leadership is an opportunity to serve others. Leadership is an opportunity to serve others. It is not an opportunity to enrich yourself, to make yourself great. Rather, it's an opportunity to serve others. And that's why we always say, leaders eat last, always. Number 4, humility is the noble choice to forego your status, deploy your resources, or use your influence for the good of others. Let's take that again. It is the noble choice to forego your status, deploy your resources, or use your influence for the good of others before yourself. Very, very important. What are some of the dangers of failing to forego your status, of failing to serve others, of willingness of and your unwillingness to be corrected, or failing to admit mistakes? What are the dangers of pride? In our third article, what happens when pride gets in the way of leadership? Lolly Daskal shares the following dangers. Number 1, when we are proud, you force others to look at unto you for everything. You force others to look unto you for everything. A proud leader would want other people to look unto him or her, and he looks down on everyone, on everything. Okay? You look down on everyone and everything. Number 2, selfishness. A proud leader will want to get into the top without caring how. So, and this is, by the way, characteristic of politicians. The way they tear down their opponents, speak ill about them, hire bloggers to destroy, to character assassinate their opponents, such that they don't become popular. They would want to reduce the likes. They would want people to look at their opponents as bad, as useless, as incapable. That kind of selfishness that aims at tarnishing others and putting yourself in front and throwing off every other person, is a mark of pride. And this is a leader, a selfish leader, will manipulate people, and speak ill about people and they would actually not spare anything as long as people are standing alongside their path towards greatness or leadership. Number 3, a proud leader is ungrateful. They will hardly thank others when things go right, even when the leader had little input into it. An arrogant leader, a proud leader, will actually force him or her to be thanked. When gratitude is not forthcoming, he will be angry and will fire such people and put them at a disadvantage so that they don't score again. Proud leaders will not help people, will not build an environment where people or the people under him can score and do it well. Actually, proud leaders will say, I did it, and will try to discredit other people. Pride follows a predictable pattern, which is success. You're top of the game. Then there is a warning that comes. People will tell you, and you are very arrogant. Then, because you want to downplay that warning, you'll be deceived. It is well. Everything is well. Go out there and you're going to become successful. The next time when you dash, you face downfall. In an excellent book by James Collins, called How the Mighty Fall, the author believes that organizations that are on their deathbed follows a certain pattern. They begin with what he calls hubris born of success. In other words, they are on the top of the game. They are number one. They are recognized. They have this acclamation. Everybody salutes them. Everybody bows to them. They feel they are too big not to fall down. They feel they are too big not to lose. Their ego is so bloated that they call themselves the kingmakers. They say, Nani kama sisi. When this stage is not marked by caution and humility, and to understand that the reason why they've been there is because of doing the things that would continue to help them to become successful. Because in the hubris born of success, the organization or the leaders stop doing those things that made them successful in the first place. And when they become so successful and they stop doing those things that made them successful in the first place, when they lose sight of those factors, what happens? And when they feel that we are so great that even if we go and sleep, even if we go for a vacation for 6 months, the company would still be successful. Even if I go for 3 Sundays for a whole month without showing up in the church will be successful. They fall into what we call undisciplined pursuit for more. This means that they would do acquisitions, they would go for mergers, they would combine, they would employ strategies that they have no capacity to be successful. The organization grows beyond their capacity to sustain. Instead of growing their people and preparing the organization for the next leap, they just relax. They go and get that other merger. They acquire that other company. They become so big. And ironically, their mouth is small. They have not increased their small mouth. And they want to swallow a bigger antelope that they have never swallowed. And because their mouth is too small, they suffocate to death. Okay? Pride goes through 5 phases. F-A-C-E-S. Pride goes through 5 phases. Stephen Brandino gives us those 5 P's that shares the phases that pride goes through. Pretending. Pretending is making a show of how important, of how big, is simply showing off that you are bigger and greater than you are. P number 2, second phase, is power. Instead of using power to inspire, to build, to motivate, to make people feel good, you use power to manipulate others. For the Pharisees, this is what they did. They used power to manipulate others, to make others feel miserable and bad. Nelson Mandela, the first president of South Africa, understood the purpose of using power in serving others. A close aide by the name of Jesse Duarte shares the following testimony. We quote, He didn't even want to hurt people's feelings. He never really cared about what great people think of him, but he did care about what small people thought of him. He would never insult someone who did not have power. Nelson Mandela never used his power, even as a president, to hurt people, to humiliate people, but he used his power to honor people, to uplift people, to inspire people, to encourage people, to build people. The third phase of arrogant leaders or proud leaders is perception. Perception has to do with the way you see yourself. A proud leader, an arrogant leader, he sees himself better than everyone else around. You cannot tell a proud leader that he is not the best. And they love the game of comparison. And the Pharisees were good at it. You know, in Matthew 23 verse 5, we read, they even make a big show of wearing scripture verses on their foreheads and arms. You know, the religious leaders wore what we call supersized religious boxes. You know, and the reason why they wore those oversized, supersized, big size religious boxes, much as it was commanded in the Bible, in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 6, was for two purposes: to draw attention to others, and also to offer a distorted view of their spirituality. And leaders, arrogant leaders, will want to cut an image that they are very good, that they are like this. They want to give a distorted view of others. Number 4 is perks. P-E-R-K-S, perks. The Pharisees are describing the words that they love the best seats at banquets and front seats in the synagogues. You know, arrogant leaders don't want to sit in the back. They want to sit in front. They enter the room with loud mouth. You know, they want everybody to take recognition of them. They want people to wave at them, to, give them a standing ovation. And this contrasts with Pope Francis when he came to Kenya in November 2015. Interesting enough is that he was spotted carrying a black bag. And when he was asked by the media team, why are you carrying a black bag? He said, it is normal. It is normal. I have done it before. Why should I not do it now? You know, pride makes you entitled for privileges. And when those privileges are not forthcoming, arrogant leaders will cause a drama. And we've seen, whether it is pastors, whether it is politicians, whether it is the CEO, the mere fact that they have not been given these privileges, the kind of drama that they have caused themselves, and the drama, the hurt, and the humiliation that they have caused other people. Remember, even without those privileges, you are still the CEO. You are not the CEO because of those privileges. You are a CEO because of the responsibilities that you've been given. Listen to this. As you go up, your rights decrease, your responsibilities. Let's say that again. As you rise up the leadership ladder, your rights decrease, your responsibilities increase. Your rights decrease, your responsibilities increase. That's why we say leaders eat last. The final phase of arrogant leader is position. Pharisees loved positions. And in the marketplace, they wanted people to call them Rabbi. And this was simply saying, this is my position. By the mere fact that I'm called Rabbi, I am more important than every other person around here. A lot of us love using our titles, especially when introducing ourselves. We love to say, I'm the CEO around here, I'm the owner, I'm the bishop, I'm reverend, I am professor, I am doctor, I am this and this. We love associating our names with our titles. There are two people that we've met and they have failed to introduce themselves with their titles. The first person is called Jonathan Shiano. Jonathan Shiano, simply while he was the CEO of Uchumi, introduced himself. My name is Jonathan and I am a shopkeeper. Kept me thinking. He is the CEO of Uchumi. He is the master turnaround of companies, a brand name that he had earned in the media. But here he comes, he says, my name is Jonathan and I'm a shopkeeper. Kept me thinking. The other one guy that I met is the late Deputy Commissioner of Prisons, Mr. Akoyo. At one time, we met somewhere in a function and he said, my name is Akoyo and I am a prison officer. I thought he should have said, but then I think he was a senior superintendent of prisons. Yes, I think he was a senior superintendent of prisons. I thought he should have said, my name is SSP Akoyo, and I need to look at his name full so that I can be able to give to you. But he was a director. Yeah. Yes, Agri. His name was Agri Akoyo. He was the deputy commissioner, and he was the deputy commissioner of prisons. Such a high rank, but he just simply says, my name is Agri Akoyo. I am a prison officer. My name is Jonathan Shiano. I am a shopkeeper. Friend, don't scare people with your title. We know. By the way, we know you are reverend. We know you are the senior pastor. We know you are the CEO. We know you are a bishop. Hey, by the way, we know you are a professor. We know you are a doctor. So why don't you say my name is Agri Akoyo? My name is Jonathan Shiano. Why do you want to tishara, scare people? Is it not a mark of pride? Think about it. Right? By the way, do you know, mentioning having a lot of appetite and preoccupation with your title, do you know it can be a distraction to your actual responsibility of reading others? When you major on titles, when titles become such a big occupation and they fill your head, you want to use your titles, and when people don't refer you by your titles, you become offended. And we're not saying, please, when referring to your leader, refer them by their titles. It is respectable, it is honorable. Our problem is when you must introduce yourself with your titles. It can be dangerous. Okay? Can be very dangerous. And it can be a quick shortcut towards your downfall. As we close, remember, we've said it. The higher you go, the higher the number of persons that you serve. The higher you go, the higher the number of persons that you go. So how do you face or handle pride? Because pride is something that comes to us very easily. It is one of those subtle sins, small sins that creep into our hearts, even without noticing. Refuse the temptation to act arrogantly. Proverbs 16:18 says, too much pride would destroy you. Too much pride would destroy you. So refuse the temptation to act arrogantly. Number 2, seek advice from others. Seek advice from others. You don't know everything. Consult. When you consult, people feel embraced and needed and required. Seek advice. Okay? Number 3, when things go wrong, admit mistakes. One of the characteristics in his book is that they are a little bit hesitant and uncomfortable with accepting appreciation. They look out in the mirror when you ask them, how did you become this successful? They don't point at themselves, but they point at others. Okay. So finally, lesson number 6 of Joseph leadership. Joseph generational leaders. The leech also cry. There's a movie that goes by that name. Joseph, in a number of times, cried out. He showed out his emotions. In Genesis 43 verse 30, we read that when his brothers hurried from the room, then Joseph, I think yes, it is then, not when. Joseph, that is Genesis 43 verse 30. Then Joseph hurried from the room because he was overcome with down and wept. We have leaders who go through emotional pains after being betrayed, spoken ill against. They don't hide they hide their emotions. It is very important for a leader to express your emotions. Don't suppress them. Don't hide them. And David Guzik, commenting on the same verse, says that Joseph was sad and emotional because he never had relationship with Benjamin. When leaders show emotion, it portrays them as normal. And leaders are placed at a pedestal. By the way, for those of us that are church members, we never think that our pastor should cry. We think he is a super saint. He or she is a super saint. So when a pastor cries, when a CEO cries and laughs, it simply shows that he is normal like us. It makes others to understand you. Okay? And they are drawn towards you. And number 3, when a leader shows emotions, it creates cohesion within the team. Otherwise, when you hide your emotions, you never laugh, you never cry. When you are angry, you don't say that you are angry. When you are happy, you don't say it. People will run away from you because they know you are an emotional turmoil. That is a time bomb waiting to explode. Finally, lesson number 7. Be persistent. And whether you are thinking of Joseph, the son of Jacob, or Joseph, the husband of Mary, all of them had opportunity to give up, but they did not. They chose to go on. In the presence of odds, they were persistent. And this is our 7th lesson. In particular, when you look at Joseph, he was misunderstood by his family. He was sold into slavery by his brothers. He lived in a strange country far from home. He was wrongly accused by Potiphar's wife. He was thrown into the pit. He was thrown into prison. He was forgotten by the chief cupbearer. He remained in prison for 2 years. He he faced a lot of challenges. Those were chances of giving up. But instead of giving up, Joseph never gave up. One commentator makes a quite insightful observation. He says Joseph had twice as many gives ups as go-ons. He had the strength to go on and not to give up. Whether he was in pit, in prison, he chose to go on and not to give up. In leadership, we are saying, don't give up. Don't give up. By the call that God has given you, with the mandate that you've received from Christ, we encourage you. Like John Walker,